Hey everyone, CEO of Scopio here, and I am going live with Joey Montoya, who is a photographer, multimedia artist, entrepreneur, fashion designer, and works on fashion to support and grow Indigenous populations. So we're going to be bringing him on now, and can't wait to hear what he has to say. Hi, Joey.
Hey, how's it going?
Nice to see you.
Yeah,
I was just
likewise.
checking out your business.
Oh yeah, today's the day. It's kind of crazy because it kind of came up pretty quick, Indigenous Peoples Day, and
Yeah.
usually,
Your business came
um,
up quick?
no, that's a long,
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the secret?
yeah, came up, really quick. No, that was like about 8 years. It's
Wow,
crazy, coming up on 8 years this December,
that's
which,
amazing. Good job.
yeah, yeah, it's so wild just looking back and thinking of like where we started, and it's kind of crazy because a lot of people see the fashion part, but that the brand of the fashion part was added a little bit later. Um, like a
What did you start with?
it was actually using photography and videography to really share Indigenous issues through that. And then once I saw that there was a lack of information and narratives that were being shared, and just around my group of friends that just didn't know anything about Indigenous folks or um,
why do you care about Indigenous people?
yeah, exactly. And that's like a hard thing. It's like, how do I really
Yeah.
translate and like educate folks in like a different way where they
But
can,
why do you feel like you need to do that? Like what
oh,
is it about you that makes
well,
you care about
yeah,
the subject?
well, I'm Lipan Apache from Texas, but I grew up in San Francisco. And I think growing up in San Francisco and just kind of being surrounded by a lot of industries and tech and all that, and we're really just drowned out. So I think that's where it kind of comes for me. It's like, how can I um, share with people that just kind of our stories and our perspectives from this Indigenous perspective, and it's in a different lens. So not, yeah, and is using photography and design just to yeah, show that we're not invisible and that we're actually still here. But a lot of it stems too, just like with the education part and all that. But yeah, that's kind of like how I got started with just my background and being Lipan Apache. And um,
What is Lipan Apache for those who don't know?
yeah, it's so there's about 570 seven plus tribes in the states alone, and that's just not counting like a bunch of other ones that are federally, state, and it's a whole thing in itself. But I'm a Lipan Apache, and there's different bands of Apache. So there's like White Mountain Apache and Chiricahua Apache, but we're in like our territory is in Texas and the Mexican border as well.
So
That's
how
where I
did you
come from.
become like a multimedia artist on top of all this?
The movement happened in Canada called Idle No More, and that was the one that really inspired me to really share what was happening in Canada for the Indigenous folks in Canada, where their like land and water rights were being infringed upon. So that kind of started that, and slowly, like in high school, I picked up a camera and I was doing photography, and then always did artwork. I grew up with a lot of artists in my family, so that was really instilled in me. And my brother's like a printmaker.
Wow.
My other brother does like jewelry and airbrush and acrylic. He does like really phenomenal work. So like really surrounded by like these, they're like I feel like way better than me in like the creative space.
Are they in
But
Texas too or San Francisco?
yeah, one of my brothers is in Berkeley, Bay Area, and then my brother I'm actually gonna go visit soon. He actually just moved back to Texas because he grew up out there. But yeah, that's pretty much how I kind of got into like doing photography, and then I got more into graphic design in college, and I took a photography class in college too, and that really what kind of set me like, okay, I really love photography. There's something about it that I love, and if I can share like my perspective or my views through that, or just how diverse Indigenous people are through photography, um, and that we're not just like, have all this beadwork and feathers and that kind of perspective,
Yeah.
in just a different kind of, I don't want to say modern, but a contemporary way,
So like I'm super fascinated that you're an entrepreneur and that you've been
hmm
able to build a business around a topic that you really care about. I
hmm
feel the same way about Skopje. I cared about
hmm
protest photography and I wanted to share it with the
hmm
world, and been able to build the site up to hundreds of thousands of photos from people like
hmm
you that are amazing to highlight that. But when I speak with like artists, I feel like sometimes I'm like, wow, like why, like it's such a creative thing, I think, for you to actually create a concept
hmm
around this. Can you tell me a little bit about how you built that? Like you said, it's 8 years.
hmm
What is that process like? I'm sure it's not easy. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the difficulties that you faced, or
hmm
how you've struggled that way through.
Yeah, like I said, I started in 2012 in December, and that's when I first heard of this movement and just saw a lot of direct action and what we call round dances and rallies that were happening all across the states and all
Yeah.
over. I think that was just like really what set it off for me, and then really continuing wanting to share, like really wanting to share. I think that passion and just wanting to be represented in so many different ways and forms, and in not only just like in our own community, but in like mainstream area as well, like diving into to fashion and just using those like photography, video work, content creation, all those tools to really bring that out. And I pretty much I feel like I was like learning along the way too, of just like learning about these issues and really, yeah, it's wanting to continue to share that. And that's really kind of like pushed me to continue. It's like not thinking about like myself, it's thinking about like how can I help other communities through this different way. And there's so many amazing people doing great work all across what we call Indian country or Native country. Um, and I feel like I'm just like a little kind of a speck in what everything is, but we all tackle it in different ways and different forms. But yeah, that's
So what about the
it.
business part? Tell me about that.
The business part. It was interesting. I didn't study business at all, and that's been something not too challenging right now, but it's something that I'm just continuing to learn about, especially as I bring on more people this year and all that. So that's been like a challenge in itself, but it's not too difficult. It's you have your basic things that you need, and then from there just navigating, but knowing when you should bring in like folks that specialize in like certain aspects as well, whether that's like accounting stuff, because that's like a whole thing,
I know.
or a bit like more of the business aspect of that.
Tell me about like your first products.
It's crazy because like as the business grew, I grew as like a creative person. So you can see some like early clothes where we're coming out with pieces that were really just kind of simple. And I think that's one of the reasons why our brand is kind of growing in this light. It's like simple, clean, but also like we get this question a lot, like non-native people wear our apparel, and that's like an obvious thing. Like everyone, we make our apparel for everyone. There's items like the hummingbird where we still get to ask that question, which is very interesting to me. Just people's train of thought of like feeling that they can't wear like a hummingbird because it's a
What's a
native
humming?
owned. Oh, we
Oh,
have like a hummingbird design.
like of a bird?
Yeah, just a bird, like nothing like native that anything about it. There's a story behind it, but um,
What's the story?
so we were based out in San Francisco, California, and the indigenous folks from there are the Ohlone folks, Ohlone peoples, and their creation story has coyote, hummingbird, and an eagle. And I remember listening to this story when I was in college, and kind of just for me to pay homage to them, I wanted to use like the hummingbird just to kind of, like share that story and share like that indigenous folks are still here. And we dropped that actually 2 years ago on Indigenous Peoples Day in 2018. That design, it was like it said UNE Urban Native Era, and it was like really generic, just like that.
Like a
That was
t-shirt,
it.
or wait, what
Yeah,
is it? Like for
yeah, like a
people that don't know.
t-shirt. Yeah, like
Okay.
just like a t-shirt. Oh yeah, you can't even see. Can you see?
Yeah.
No.
I
Yeah.
can, yeah, pull it up. We can see it a little bit.
Well, I was like, not wearing it, but let me see if I can move this back a little bit. Well, I was like trying to show like it just said UNE across, like UNE. And then our second design was actually our logo, which wasn't really intended to be our logo, but it's just for Urban Native Era. It's a face overall, but it takes in different aspects of Indigenous artwork and artists. So it has like artists from the Pacific Northwest and artists from the Texas area and then like California. So that whole idea was to share how like diverse we are. And I think that was our main art piece.
So what about now? How many products do you have now that people can get?
Right now, products, I think we have I think on the site right now, about 25, 30, but I think over the years, we've like produced so many different pieces. I was like just talking to a friend and he was like, you needed to start saving each collection for like, 20 years down the line or 30 years down the line. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's really a good idea to just do that.
Yeah. That's what I love about social media, because it's like documenting that for you.
Yeah.
So if you have it there, it's like at least like a document of it. So they're all t-shirts or what else?
Yeah, t-shirts, hoodies, and we have a lot of like new stuff dropping, hats. Like a lot of our main statement piece now is it's a Your Native Land cap, which really resonates with like a lot of people, and that's one of our top selling items. And it's interesting because when I first put that out, it was really, I was like walking through the city and being surrounded by, just all these people, and no one thinking like no one knows about Indigenous people. People don't know. So we need like a statement piece that says like you're on Native land. And it's like kind of, some people think it's aggressive or not, but I feel like it's kind of subtle, but it's there. It's like people always ask us to say like we are on Native land, but it's our narrative. It's like we're sharing our stories, and that's like it's kind of a different narrative. And that's like another huge part. It's like sharing our narratives through all these stories and what we put out,
How do you feel to like live in a place where like when I look at like issues like Armenia right now, or like Palestine, Israel, and I look at all these like colonial approaches to like people taking other people's lands and being on them, and it's like a common thing that keeps happening. But then like as Americans, like everyone's always like, oh, they never think that we were a part of that too. Even like someone like me, who my parents were immigrants from Jordan, they came to America. I still feel that legacy here is in America. I'm like, well, nobody ever thinks about the fact, like, why can't we think about the fact that we've also done this to other people? And lately too, like, how does it feel? Especially because I'm thinking like all these race issues are really funny because the Native people look like you, but then everyone's like, no, this is like, like all these like racist kind of ideas. And I'm like, why can't people understand that the people that they actually like took this land from didn't look like that? Like, it's so crazy. How do you feel like all of these like mumble jumbled stories, like how do they affect you?
I've kind of just doing this line of work, like I feel like you kind of have to like step back a little bit and not really get consumed in like all like the stuff that is happening, because like that can really just drain you in like a lot of the stuff, especially like activism and really being out there. So it doesn't affect me honestly too much, but I think that's where we like as a brand, like how can we reshape those narratives and like change those what's happening out there, and really kind of shift that perspective in just a different way, in a creative way. So
do you ever get any pushback about commercializing culture?
That's something that we haven't got too much really about it. We run ads like every now and then. I think we might be running an ad now, but we get these people like, oh, is this a Native owned company or stuff like that? And it's a tricky line, because that's something like early on I was like, am I like
sellout?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Am I like a sellout, or am I appropriating my own stuff, or my own culture? And I don't think we should look at it in that way, in that sense, and I think a really big part of a lot of Indigenous folks or entrepreneurs, they really give back. And I think that's like a huge part of the brand. Even early on when we started, we were working to highlight issues and raise funds and do all that kind of stuff as well. So a lot of like native brands give a lot. Like there's Cheekbone Beauty in Canada. It's a makeup, indigenous makeup, and yeah, it's like there's a lot of like brands that give back, and I think that's like something that's I feel like doesn't balance it, but it holds a lot, you know, and that's like part of our community. It's like how can we continue to give back to our community and all the things that whatever we're doing, you know, how can we help our own people?
Yeah, so a lot of Scopio's audience are like content creators.
Hmm.
And like, do you have any advice for them on how to build attention? Like coming from that content media side, like how do you get people to care about what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I feel like a photo and like content can really hold a lot. One of the things that's something I learned early on, though, it's like even with like shooting protest stuff or just shooting other folks that are from different communities, is being really careful about what narrative you're really trying to share. Yeah, it's being really cautious, and that's something that I learned like early on, not only like within our community but outside of that, because there's people on the ground, you know, in that community that has a narrative that they're really trying to share. So you taking that photo, like what is that doing? Is it hurting our community or is it not? So it's paying attention to things like that. But also it can be like, you know, you have like a friend that's native or whoever, like you want to go take photos of them and really being respectful and be like, you know, wear whatever you feel comfortable with. And if they like feel comfortable about wearing some regalia, or nothing, like just regular, you know, t-shirts, then kind of just go with that. But I think being really cautious of that and like just how photography and content creation can really affect other communities, but also can be really powerful of like what you can create. So, or what you can share.
So say you took like a great photo, like how do you use that to get more attention or to attract an audience? Because
Hmm.
there's so many talented people out there where nobody sees them and nobody can hear their story. Like, well, how did you build that audience?
Yeah, that's a hard one. It's like I think the consistency of like creating and like taking photos like every day and sharing it and building that has helped a lot. But that's like it's hard because I mean that's how I you know started it all. It was like taking photos and then posted it to Facebook, and it was just getting a lot of shares and all that. So I just kind of knew that there was like that was needed, but with being specific with like photography or content creation, I think this, yeah, creating what really, or sharing or taking photos of what really resonates with you as well can really help push that along.
And that's like, where were your main channels? Like, how did you grow those audiences?
Yeah, so I started with Facebook and that was just like me sharing photos, and then Instagram developed, um, and became like our top platform, I would say, overall, just in not only just sales, but just how do we connect with our community in this way. And then now, yeah, well, now it's like getting into TikTok and navigating that realm of like how do we want to have a presence on there.
Today, there's such a conversation around Indigenous people. How
Hmm.
does somebody that like feels like, okay, finally, like, or like Black Lives Matter, for example, people that are talking about a subject, what can you do as like an, I don't even
Ally
know what to
or
call you, an
yeah,
artist, entrepreneur. How do you,
okay.
somebody that wants
Oh,
to do
got it.
something, how do you take a current event like that
Hmm.
and amplify it even bigger? Like,
Yeah,
I'm sure that could help you, but you need to know how to use it to help you. How do you
yeah.
do that?
I don't
Do
know.
you
I don't have.
engage with organizations? Like,
Yeah,
how do you build that up?
where people know that you're doing good work or you're doing it out of like you know the kindness of your heart or just like really passionate about like sharing a story. I think that's like something because there's people who take photos and just like that's it, you know, they'll never connect with the community again. So I think building that, really building that connections, and I think that's what I actually did early on was I would go to these rallies and protests and just connect and be there like physically. And now that we can't be there physically, like how do we show up online? And that's like creating content, engaging with them, like and not forcing anything too. It's just like how can I help, right? And they can also get overwhelmed with that. Like I get overwhelmed with so many messages, you know, through both of our platforms. It's like, oh, like I want to connect this, and it gets so like overwhelming too. So knowing that boundary of like, um, yeah, like being able to help, but just know when to help and not to be too much help. But also just like, yeah, I think connecting with the community overall is definitely
Yeah.
something I would recommend. Yeah.
What is like the thing that's been most helpful for you that nobody would know? Like, is it a tool that you use, or is it a person that helps you? Like, what is that thing that you feel like is an X factor?
I don't know. It's a weird. I'm in a weird like position where I've just brought on more people. So I've been doing it for like 8 years by myself. So now like this year it's been like more people, which they've been like super helpful in like so many different ways.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of navigating that like that kind of realm. But I think prior it was really for me, I guess, acting really quick and like decision making and like kind of um, yeah, like issues come up, like how do we assist and help, and how do we want to help, and then now like revisiting, like okay, well, we can't always like help right away, so how can we think longer term of like an issue or how we want to help and navigate our communities in just a different way, and there's a longer term way.
And on the like actual practical aspects of your business, is there
Mhm.
something that helps you?
I just switched over to Shopify and it's
Yeah.
amazing. Like I had
Yeah.
Squarespace and then I had WordPress before then, and I kind of just been moving along. But Shopify has really helped just on the back end, because that just gets stressful overall if like things are not functioning properly or like you can't do something.
Yeah.
So with like Squarespace, I couldn't create gift cards for customers. They would only have to be able to buy a gift card. So with like Shopify, I can create gift cards and hand those
Yeah.
out. But yeah, and I majored in advertising too, and like that's so my brain is like advertising and using advertising to like really push these issues in just like a different way, and like using that overall with content. And so like my brain is always just like thinking like advertising, but in a good way, because there's always like these negative um, things towards like advertising.
Yeah, no, it's actually
Hmm.
so important, because whether you're advertising your business or whether you're advertising yourself,
Hmm.
like in your products or like anything, like you need to really build that distribution like
Hmm.
muscle in your brain,
Yeah.
because otherwise you could be spinning
Yeah.
your wheels and never get anybody to see it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like a
Hmm.
practice thing that
Yeah. And
you have to train yourself how to think like that. And it's
yeah.
not, and there is a bad rap about it. That's why I asked the question about like how you feel about that, because there's always people coming in about
Hmm.
opinions on what you can do or what you can't do, or things that you can advertise or things that you
Yeah.
can't advertise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, especially navigating in like our community. So like navigating and knowing like that, and really thinking about like the advertising aspect, like how do we really want to share what we're doing and like the story behind it. It's like you really need to think about everything so nothing does like get turned into like a whole thing, you know. Even I'm trying to work on myself, it's like, you know, we're creatives or designers or content creator or content creating content, and how do we really push now? And it's like creating content consistently through all channels. Like I know it's not the funnest thing, or
Yeah.
like I know it is a lot of work, but it's something that's like that I know just from the past 8 years. It's like if we continue to create consistent content and pushing that, like that really like helps jumpstart like a lot of what you're trying to do, whatever that is, you know, whether you just want to do photography or create videos and do all that. So like being and having that mentality of just being everywhere all the time. Like we're on LinkedIn, TikTok,
Yeah.
Twitter, you know, all these different platforms, and then paying attention to what's new too. That's like a whole thing in
Yeah.
itself, you know.
How do you measure it? Like, or do you just kind of get in a feeling of like what's working and what's not?
We'll definitely have a feeling, but then there's like this I think 71-29 rule that they have, that someone created, was like spend 71% of your creating content for like that top platform, and then the rest kind of like trickles into that whatever percentage, that 29%. So
Is there any advice that you have for people that you'd like to share?
yeah, I mean, this is the one thing that I like. I think, I mean, I think a lot of people think it's like if you don't love it, it's gonna be draining to you. So like really finding like whatever you're doing, like love what you're shooting, love the content you're creating. You don't have to, your content doesn't always have to be perfect too, because that can really be something where you just like don't want to release it until it's perfect, perfect. I find that myself doing that sometimes, but I've been like, I have this travel podcast and I'm like, I just got to release it. Just got to do it, release it.
Yeah. How do you get over that for people that have that fear?
I mean, I wouldn't say do that for every single piece too. I think just some of the things that you really like, if you feel like you're going to hold on to that for like so long, like that's where it becomes like, challenging, because like you don't want to beat yourself up of like, oh, I need to post more, but then this is not perfect and not right. So just being okay and like, okay, I'm going to release this photo and like, this is the best what I can do at this time or something.
Yeah, I think people like think it's a reflection of themselves, but it's not. Like they think, oh, like I'm going to be embarrassed if it's not good enough, or it's not really like about you, really. It's about the story and keeping that going. And also like using it as a documentary approach more than like a art approach. You're saying, is it important the context of what I'm trying to say versus just like the art of it? And the context for me, I realize like always wins over the beauty of whatever you're creating.
Yeah, just passion. That passion fuels, like, it's crazy. It's passion can just fuel you. Like it can really get you to continue to move throughout your day. And because it's challenging times overall, like this year, and it's going to continue to be like this. So how do we really put ourselves in a good light, and how do we kind of pivot and change and shift in a good way? So like recognizing like what really fuels you inside, so you can really put out that work and you feel comfortable and you feel good overall, and using that to feel good. I love shooting like photography. I love shooting photos and doing photography and all that. It's something that like, aside from like the brand stuff, it's something I can just kind of do and that I love, and I can edit real quick or take a little longer on the edits or whatever, and just kind of like have it. And I feel like fulfilled in that way.
Yeah. What it like renews you? Like 8 years, like I've been also running my business for like 7 years. What for you during that time period? Like, how do you re-energize? Like you have your passion, you have your like, you see the results and everything, but how do you like, what has been your way to like manage that?
Yeah. So like 2 years ago, I was on the road. I just graduated college. I spent a year on the road, and I was doing a bunch of jobs like photography, videography, and then I was also running the brand. And I told myself like I need to just do the brand fully and just go ham. And so I moved back home to San Francisco with my mom, and I spent like every day from September to December waking up at 4 a.m. and then going to bed at like 6 to 7 p.m. So I wake up, go to the gym, go to a coffee shop, and just like work up until like 5:30, and then go to bed. I'll be exhausted. Go to bed around like 6 p.m., 7, and then I did that like for those months straight, and not a moment went by where I was like, I don't want to do this, or I'm so tired. And I think the reason what was because, well, passion is one of them. So passion is, I identified that as like a real key to keep you moving forward. But you also need to, or what I see is being like eating healthy, like eating that and really keeping up with your health, and then working out, and then getting sleep. Because if I didn't get any sleep during that time, like I would probably be super drained out. And yeah, so I think those are like some of the things that really has helped me, that I learned in 2018. Because before that, I was like overextending myself and like burning out and doing like just doing a lot of work, and me just like I want to like help people, so I like overextend my help. And so in 2018 I kind of realized like, okay, like these are some of the things that I need in my life that I can really keep a good balance, and using that through now like the past 2 years, and I think that really helps, because all this work we're doing, like even the work you're doing and like creating this space and really sharing the narrative, like different narratives, and just showing the diversity of like, people overall. And like it's challenging work. It's, all the things we're doing is like challenging and it's hard and can take a lot out of you. So like knowing that, I'm like, it helps me just kind of get through the day. And I've been a big traveler too. So I love like traveling to places. So being stuck in like one place for this amount of time, it's really been like kind of hard for me as well. And I'm trying to like navigate that because like that's like really like foreign to me and just like staying inside a room and like or in my apartment for so long. So
Yeah. Have you been able to go outside and do anything in nature?
yeah, well, I'm actually in New York at the moment. I decided to kind of yeah get away um, from just Los Angeles, and after this, I'm gonna go visit my brother. I was staying in Texas, but yeah, so I'm like this is helping me a lot too. Just like okay, I can kind of like regenerate a little bit and like get
Yeah.
things rolling. And this is like a busy months, what we call determine the
Yeah.
busy months, you know, as we go into
Yeah.
the holiday season, which is wild.
And this year is like just flew by like crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, can't believe it's already October. And November is Native American Heritage Month. So like
Oh,
that's
it
a big
is.
yeah, it's a big month for us as well. So
That's
yeah.
great.
So
Well, let us know how we can support that.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
we'd love to do
Definitely.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be
Uh,
cool.
well, thanks for sharing all these tips. People are going to get so much out of this for sure.
Yeah.
Tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, well, my personal is Joey, JoeyMontoya, but the brand is called Urban Native Era, and it's at Urban Native Era, and yeah, urbannativeera.com is where you can find the gear. Today we're having like a 10% off for Indigenous Peoples Day, so it's a win today because we don't really have discounts too much.
No, that's
Yeah,
better. That's
yeah,
great. That's great. Yeah, well, hopefully people will support you and
yeah,
hope to meet you soon.
yeah. Likewise, good talking.
Thanks. Bye,
All right,
Joey.
bye.
Alrighty, see ya.